Hello. How is everyone doing today?
Hopefully it's as hopefully they're having as beautiful weather as both you and I are having.
You know, it does look pretty darn nice there for palm trees and pumpkins. 24.
Right?
What's the
It's it.
greater Charleston, South Carolina forecast for today?
Yeah, we're sitting at a whopping 81, 82, something like that right now, and we're looking at low 80s throughout the week. So yeah, I mean it looks absolutely beautiful.
It's probably in the mid 70s here. Little breeze coming through on my little jacket for the breeze blowing through my garage office.
Yeah, I had to actually put a jacket on last night when we came back from trivia night. So I was in a
Trivia.
golf cart.
Nice, nice, nice. I like that you guys have you've moved into a new place. Like have all these activities and stuff you do. You had a golf cart that took a while to get lined up, but it sounds like it's up and running for you now.
The bread wagon. It literally looks like a bread truck. I mean it's big. It's a it's an extended one just because we have so many kids, and typically when they stay with us, it's the easiest way to get around. It really is. We have a trail that we use and it takes us down to, the grocery store. When I describe it, dude, I feel like I'm describing like a retirement home or a 55 and over community or something like that, which there is one across the road. We just don't belong to it. We use their trails. But no, it makes it so much easier than fighting traffic.
And that's how they're building these new communities, right? To kind of make them so they're sort of self-sufficient, like a little town, and it's of each community.
Right. They really are. And that way you don't have to go more than 5 miles to be able to get what you need. I mean, I, there isn't too much that is, that I need outside of that radius. So that was one of the things that kind of attracted us to the area too. Um, and what's kind of neat is you meet a lot of people from different parts of the US who were looking for the same thing. And so you already have some common ground when you're next to your neighbor, you meet your neighbor for the first time, because the majority of them are here for the same reasons. They're looking for a way to live, work, and play, and one, enjoy the weather. I mean, the summers are definitely extremely sticky, moist, and nasty, overly tropical. Yeah, there's no way to really nicely describe 97% humidity. There just isn't. Um, but when you don't have that, it's great. And, we have great neighbors too. Just phenomenal neighbors.
Yeah, a tough part about when I lived in South Carolina was that trying to sleep at night, as long as you have the air conditioner on, you are okay. But holy
Yeah.
moly, you just like stick together.
Did you know that's why they had the open porches back in the day? You've seen Carolina homes. So they have the outdoor porches and there's a door in front of it. And it does absolutely nothing. I mean, if somebody wanted to break in, they just go around the door and hop the railing, right? But the whole idea was when there wasn't air conditioning, it was always facing toward the area where the wind would be blowing, right? So at night they could go out there and sleep. And, typically, of course, you're trying to catch the breeze as much as possible. And so it was always a comment made to mind your north. In other words, people are out there sleeping, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they were wearing the 20 to 30 pounds of garments, while they're trying to sleep outside. And so therefore you were supposed to be polite and not look. But that's why they had those doors. If the door was closed, you do not look.
Might as well just have a sign that says look north, young man."
Exactly. It's one of the things I love about the culture though, too. I mean, it's just it's so historic. It's cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm not gonna stop riding you on this one. You got to get out there on that Cooper River and catch me a catfish.
I cross over it on the bridge. What do you, what do I do with the catfish? Seriously, I mean, I do not fish. I just I, I just don't.
You get those
I
big
don't.
fat ones, and you can cut their cheeks off, and that's a whole little fillet on a nice big catfish. That's like, so good, so good.
Yeah.
I have to come visit there just
Yeah, absolutely.
because I used to live there and I haven't been there for 30 years. So,
Yep.
yep. All right, all right. There we go. There are our warm and fuzzy niceties to start this thing off. And so last week I did a show while you were out about ROI, about what our ROI was, and how to, assure that if you're bringing services into your business, that how you can calculate to know if they're profitable for your business, or if it's just going to be a
Hmm.
drag on you. And
Right.
Fernando Cortez in Boise, Idaho, messaged me, and he was really enjoyed it, and he was curious and asked if we would do a show about analytics. And I thought, heck yeah, what a great thing to do our live on is analytics. And it came up because he's business ebbs and flows, and
Hmm.
there's natural times in detailing business when we're going to have a slowdown around September that we just kind of got through, where everybody slows down when school starts. Then it's going to kick back up a little bit. We're going to get a little rush around before Christmas, then it'll kind of slow down again. Then if you can look at your analytics, you can better be prepared to forecast and apply your marketing efforts prior to the slowdowns and ebbs and flows coming. And if you're
Right.
not doing that, you're just kind of flying blind. And then we see a lot of the guys that kind of get whiplashed back and forth, and everything's going great, so they take their foot off the gas, and then all of a sudden things slow down, and then they're in crisis mode. So that was the catalyst for this show. And I knew that you, being in the position that you're in, having my detail business was mobile and small, and I kept most of my analytics were on QuickBooks. Yours is a larger scale, so I thought it would be really fun to kind of do some comparisons in that and just talk about what analytics you need to look at in your business, and then maybe touch a little bit on what you're doing with your money as far as the analytics side goes.
Yeah, sure. I think the way to really look at it too is you kind of break it down and you look at what are the daily analytics you want to take a look at, and then also I think weekly. And then also with the weekly, you think about it, you take that accumulated data and it becomes the monthly. Um, for us, when it comes to daily revenue, I mean, we want to know how much money has rolled in, right? So you want to look at the daily revenue. Um, One of the other things that we look at is average order value, or AOV. What are our customers buying more with each purchase, right? And I'm saying this because I'm not sitting here telling detailers to try to fleece your customers or anything like that. It's just these are things that you need to know so that you can better serve your customers. Because if you're lacking in some of these areas, then it's not just lacking profits, but you're lacking in servicing your customers too. It just gives you a better understanding of who you're working with. Um, so that I think that's important. The other thing that I think is important is looking at your sales conversion rate. How many leads, how many inquiries turned into paying customers? And looking at that and breaking it down. Um, Typically, most people will find these tools within the CRM and a POS system set together. Well, we have that with Vigaro. I know there are definitely a lot of different CRMs out there who also have POS systems integrated. And so you like Road FS, those guys have got that going on. I know your Rabel is also doing it too. I mean, it's just it's something that is available today that everybody should be taking advantage of because in 2016 we didn't have that. It might have been out there, but I couldn't find it. Didn't know what it was. Really was trying to figure it all out, and that's when we got set up with Vigaro. And one of the things I like about it is, and you see it with a lot of these companies now too, you can set up a dashboard So all this information is already right there. You just preset it. So that's the first thing you look. You don't have to go digging for it. It saves you a lot of time to have it set up on a dashboard. So in the morning in the dashboards, we're looking at sales metrics, customer engagement. Um, I do think, I do think that probably the biggest thing to that I don't maybe not the biggest, but the easiest one to understand would be cash flow and getting a look at your cash flow, the daily cash balance, making sure you got enough in the bank for smooth operations. And this is what helps with these ebbs and flows. You know, you talk about taking your foot off the gas. I've made that mistake many times. Um, what's a bigger mistake is not keeping your eye on the cash flow because that's where big surprises come and they'll hit you and they can hit you really hard.
You know, out of the guys that we work with, two of them, when we talk about cash flow, come to mind very quickly, who have really taken control of their cash flow side by implementing a similar to a profit first system where they split their money into 5 different accounts. So
Hmm.
now, when they pop that open and look at it, they really have a clear picture on a daily basis of where their money is. They know they have that operating one where all the money's going into. They know that they have money filtering out 15 or 20% of it for their tax account. So there's money in there to
Hmm.
pay taxes. When it's time to pay the taxes, they pop it open. They got all the money sitting right there to do it. They have one in there for ordering products and stuff, and they have one in for their profits. Having that clarity to know where your money is, again, is just playing right into knowing where your analytics are and how you can make any decision and put so much of the stress that comes with not knowing behind you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we start talking about it, it can be very overwhelming at first, and there's always these steps that you can take. And if you were to take just what is one of the major first steps you could take, it's definitely going to be your cash flow. Um, to me, the saying cash is king, cash flow is king, but what really is the crown of all that is the profit. And you can't figure out your profit unless you figure out your cash flow. And but the profit is how much are you keeping? You know, not how much is once you know how much is coming in, how much is going out, now you got a good idea how much are you keeping.
We even do this with our home finances at this point, where there's a paycheck that's coming in and that goes into the general account, and then there's other accounts that the money gets shifted into because I know that those expenses are going to be there, and just so
Hmm.
helpful. And a lot of the detailers that maybe are listening to this might think, hey, my business is small, it's just me, or I have one employer, one helper, and maybe this isn't important for me. But it matters not what the size of your business is. Every
No.
single piece of that data is going to paint the picture and give you clarity on where your business stands.
And we've talked about this before too. So in our industry, there's kind of two ways you can go, right? Either you can create a job for yourself, you know, or you create a business. And by creating the business, that means you're pulling yourself away from doing the work. Now, if you had all this data, all these analytics, and if you're a one-man band and that day comes when you find somebody that wants to go ahead and buy your business, this having this data right there makes everything way easier to help sell your business. Plus, whoever is buying it has a much better picture of what they're buying. It makes you more an attractive ideal. In businesses, this is expected. They want to see it. It's not just about the P&L. It's all this data. The more data that you can provide if you're selling your business, the better off you're going to be. Um, but I don't think for the sole proprietor, and I used to be a sole proprietor, and I didn't necessarily think that way. I just didn't. Um, because I was man, I mean, I was like everybody else, just caught up in the day-to-day grind, you know? I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. I got to get this car done. And You do have time for it. You just got to go ahead and be disciplined enough to say, this is when I'm going to do it. This is when I'm going to have a chance to. Right now, I'm not working in the business. I'm going to work on the business instead.
And that's such a hard shift for people to make. I think the mental side of it is what's so hard. But the neat thing from our point of view of what we get to do is, working with so many guys, is watching when they actually do take that action and they start. Usually they have to have their hand forced to do it. But when they actually do
Mhm.
start and they start working on that side of the business instead, how they just flourish and hit their next growth spurt.
Right. Right. I mean, and that's the whole thing. We always talk about it, watching our installers succeed. That's really it, it- it's it's a huge benefit to us too. And when we see them succeed, we know that what we're saying and what we've been doing all these years is right, And we always say if they don't succeed, we don't succeed.
All right. So if we're looking at those daily analytics, what are some of the things that we can kind of pull out of there? And we can even apply an example right from Owner's Pride. By looking at our analytics on a daily basis, we noticed a trend where we would have a little bit of a slowdown on the weekends. So we started
Hmm.
thinking of ways, what could we do to perk sales on the weekends, and then we try to think of things that we can implement to plug those gaps. But if you're not looking at this at your analytics on a daily basis and kind of tracking them, you wouldn't even know that you're having that slowdown because you're just looking at the whole ball of wax picture instead.
Yeah, yeah, you really do, and you gotta try to figure out, okay, why, if and also look at your customers, hey, most of our installers or detailers, they're if they're not working on the weekend, then they're spending time with their families. Good for them, right? So let's look at how do we reach more retail? How do we, it's all those things we talked about, and not necessarily just looking at the problem, but coming to the table with some solutions too. And I think so many times when we have an issue or I have a problem in the business, we just simply focus on the problem rather than looking at the options that are available. Because if anything in business has taught me, it's you got to pivot. If you want to succeed, you have to be able to pivot. You can't be completely set stone cold in your ways.
It's certainly not a perfect world, and you're going to have curveballs
No.
thrown at you on a daily basis. Having the maturity,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think that's one of the things I will say from working with you over the past few years. And for your constant telling me to take my emotion out, has been very helpful for me to communicate and to much better. So thank you for that.
We all got it. I mean, business itself is emotional. You're nurturing a business. You're it's like raising a child, right? I mean, it's a complicated set of emotions, and life itself is complex. Uh, and we're emotional people. It's just if you're able to take out the emotion, typically you hear things clear, and you also are able to say things clear too. Now, there's definitely times that we both have had discussions or conversations where there's emotions that run on either side. I'm sure when I get, emotional, I don't sound right. I don't sound the way that I normally do. And what it does is just kind of creates just a messy communication. And it's hard to get anything accomplished that way. And that's really what you're trying to do. You're trying to accomplish a problem. And messy communication will make it worse.
Absolutely. And here's a little professional tip for anybody out there to use. If I've always often had this problem with my emails as well. I write all my emails. I write it out myself, and then before I send it, I run it through ChatGPT and say, "Make this thing professional." It takes all of those I statements out and just makes it much better for the receiver to get and understand and accomplish something.
Yeah, the other thing, I can't tell you how many emails I've written and then deleted. You get a chance to get it out of your system, and then it's gone, right? And I think also with using AI, it becomes a filter, you know. Um, and I think also when you look at it and you use AI more and more and more, it begins to understand your tone of language too, and it begins to adapt, and it it works with you. And because there are sometimes, like, you've seen it, where you get an AI generated email, and it's like, I know you didn't spend any time talking. You really didn't care to talk to me. All right, whatever. But you can take that AI generated email and revise it and revise it and revise it until, hey, this is me saying what I want to say and getting my point across without getting all emotional and messy and bringing in other subject matter that isn't even pertaining to what I'm trying to make an email about.
Wow. And one more professional tip. You don't have to send that email right away either. Like you said, you delete a lot of them. I have a rule, and anytime I break this rule, I just want to smash my foot with a hammer because it pisses me off at myself so much. I let that email sit for at least 1 hour and then read it again before I send it, especially if it is something that's confrontational. You don't have to react right away. Knee-jerk reactions
No.
rarely are good. And if there's something in there that you can taste how sweet it is coming off of your tongue and sharp, it's probably not the right thing to say.
Well, and I think it kind of goes back to, looking at the analytics of your business too. You know, you're breaking things down and you're looking at things that are measured so you can have a gain, right? Your email or your response back to a customer, it should be measured too. It should be tempered according to you and your business. And I think it's just another step of, God, I hate to say it, maturity even, as a business owner, because we've all made that mistake. We've all said the wrong thing, sent the wrong email at the wrong time. Uh, but had you take an analytical approach to it, it'll change things. And it starts with your business and looking at your analytics and then taking that practice and using that practice when it comes to your emails, and also using it to monitor and take care of your social media too.
Well, another place that's knowing how to properly price your jobs. If you're not checking out how much your products cost, how much labor is going into it, and what you're spending on the job, you don't know if you're doing well too. So we see this so darn many times where people are just like, I have to do an RV. Here's a picture of it. What should I charge for this? And you have to look at those numbers to properly be able to price it. Just because Johnny over here is charging X amount of money for it, that doesn't mean it's going to cover your cost of business and you're going to make the profit margin that you've told yourself that you want to make.
Yeah.
Another one that's really big, customer engagement data. So knowing if you're chasing all of these leads, and this, if you're working with a marketing company, they should be supplying this information to you on a weekly or monthly meeting basis. But you want to know how many of these leads are that you're bringing in, what your marketing efforts are doing, how many of them you're closing, dialing in what's working the best for you. And again, without looking at these numbers, we're just throwing darts with a blindfold on.
Yeah, and I think too, sometimes you don't know necessarily what you're looking for. And we talk about, oh, you need to make an email campaign. And so like, okay, I just need to make an email blast. It's not necessarily the same thing. When you look at a campaign, there's follow through with it too. Typically, you have another set of emails that are going to follow after that. But I do think when you look at marketing metrics, one of the big things, if you're doing that with the emails, doing an email campaign, is lead conversion rates too. How many inquiries actually turn into your sales? With your email campaigns, how many people are opening the emails? That data is available, you know, and you want to know how effective your email campaign is by looking at data so that if it's not effective, you can make those changes before you send another one. You know, if nobody's opening them, why is nobody opening them?
And that will also help you kind of know your customer retention versus acquisition. Um, just because you do a ceramic coating on somebody's car does not mean you want to never see that customer again. As a matter of fact, when you've already spent money and effort to get a customer in, you want to keep that customer for as long as possible by giving them great service, staying in communication with them. I mean, gosh, these are all things that we do, on. I think this is applicable for all businesses.
Hmm. Absolutely. And again, on our dashboard, we do have our customer retention rate. We see how many returning customers we have compared to new customers, right? And I think, we used to see a 50-50 mix, but as we have grown and our customer base has grown, it's been kind of hard to keep that up. So it's definitely not a 50-50 mix. It's more like a 75-25 now. But we have all these returning customers and we love our customers. And the shop and everybody there works very hard to take care of them and make sure that they want to come back. But we have all the information. It's all part of our dashboard, so we can easily look at. Not only can I look at it, Davis can look at it too, and make any adjustments. Or if he sees something that I don't see, he brings it to my attention.
And how about on a monthly basis? We've got your total revenue versus your net profit. And do you guys even know what that is?
Yeah.
Somebody made a mean face to us and then they took it away. They were mad about
Oh,
something and then they got happy and gave us a heart.
eh,
Just keeping track
I
of
can handle that.
of our emoji analytics.
Emoji analytics. And so seriously too, I mean, social media marketing now is a completely different game. That has changed so much in just a short period of time. Even this year alone, social media marketing has changed so much and having to pivot. Now, if we weren't watching our analytics, then we would be sitting there scratching our head like, what are we doing? We've been doing this the same way for so long and we've had the same outcome. Why has things changed? You know, and that's when we started looking into, okay, how much money is being poured into social media right now due to campaigns from politics? A lot, 24 billion. It's very difficult to go ahead and be recognized when you have all that money that's been poured into social media. And so we began to pivot. We began to do things a lot more organically, began to see returns actually quite quickly. And then also, we can't outspend it. So there's no point in spending a ton of money on it, but taking some of that money that you allocated to marketing and maybe instead of putting so much on an ad or a boosted post, you lower that amount and you put out more ads rather than betting the farm on one, but spreading that out. And that has really made a huge difference for us too.
um, Kate, watching your analytics and knowing those seasonal ebbs and flows is going to make sure that you have enough product on hand too, and that you don't run out of product. If you're not paying attention, well, you might just run out of product. Then you have a job
Yeah.
that comes in and you can't perform the job, or you're paying overnight shipping that's just kind of spinning money out the door for nothing and decreasing your profit margin.
And I mean, I get it too. I understand, wanting to hold on, to the cash and not get inventory. I get it. The other thing is, I do understand that customers themselves, if they can't get in and they can't, get the service done when they want to get it done, they will go somewhere else. So having an inventory, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not just money sitting there, it's money waiting. That's all. It's money waiting to be made. So having the inventory, I agree with you, is definitely, no matter what your size, it's definitely important.
Got to have the tools to do the business. To do the business, you got to have the tools.
Yep.
All right, so CRM, we mentioned that and how valuable that is. I mean, that's just kind of it's the eco wash, if you will, of your business. It's that centerpiece
Right.
workhorse that is going to keep track of so much of your information. And then for the accounting stuff, I always used QuickBooks, and you say that you guys use Vagaro for that role.
Well, Vigaro actually ties into QuickBooks. So, it's two integrated systems for us, and sometimes you're not going to be able to see everything just on one program. There's nothing wrong with having two integrated systems, to give yourself a better idea on where your business is at and where you're at actually.
Let's see here. Let's see. So we got short-term forecasting, long-term forecasting. Again, looking at these numbers, it's going to allow you to pivot and know that every year in September you're going to slow down. So do your marketing efforts that are going to shoot towards that. And then when you're trying to plan out, you don't want to just be reactive all the time. And as you start collecting year over year, and you can the more of the analytics that you look at, the more clear of a picture you're going to paint of the business. And I absolutely loathed and fought the analytic side of the business, especially as I came over here and it got pushed on me more and more. And it's just because I didn't fully understand. I didn't understand it enough. But as that has become clearer for me, now I absolutely every day I'm checking what our sales are, who's buying products, who do we need to try to reach out to and help, who has been really busy and then all of a sudden they've kind of fallen off the face of the earth. We better check in on them and see if something's gone sideways in their life, or if we've dropped the ball somewhere and we need to address that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and like what you're saying, sometimes numbers only show you so much, right? And I am not the most number-minded person in the world. I have, throughout my life, a lot of things I've done by my gut. Um, the nice thing is having the analytics there, you feel like you're making more of an educated bet, is how I kind
Yeah.
of look at it. Kind of like looking at the sheets before you make a bet on a horse when you're at the track, um, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
Haven't done that for a while. But I mean, you feel that's what I'd rather do that than just gamble, right? I would rather sit there and educate myself on the sheet, on this horse, what it did on the quarter mile, you know, is it what's the track record, what's the weight of the jockey, all these things, all the data's there. Honestly, I have probably more fun watching the data or looking at the data than watching a race at times. Just because of all the information that's available for me to go ahead and say, this is who I'm going to put my money on, you know? And yeah, the data is there for a reason. It doesn't necessarily have to make you decide one way or the other, but it should help guide you in your decisions.
It absolutely should. And again, if you're not looking at it, what the heck are you doing? All right, so
Here's
go ahead, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say one of the things too, rather than just looking at the analytics too, is making sure that you're setting up revenues and targets. Are you hitting your weekly revenue or are you falling behind? Um, if you're falling behind all the time, is the target too high, right? If you're constantly going over, is it too low? you know and are you giving yourself a false sense of security and just feeding an ego? You want to be able to set those, and I think having personal goals, business goals, they're all important, and they need to be set so you can be able to measure where you're at, because if you don't, you can't measure. Nothing measured, nothing gained.
Yeah, in the business coaching side, I sent out an email once and made a parable about imagine if you were a sailor on a ship in the 1700s and you were just, or any time, I guess, for that matter, you jump on a sailboat right now and just start sailing out that way. If you don't have a compass, which would be your analytics, and a map, which is your goal, what are you doing? You're just going to float around at sea aimlessly and maybe get somewhere, maybe not get somewhere. So you,
Exactly. But I think too, if you want to take that same analogy, then you also need to look at forecasting too, right? So whenever, we would go out to see, you wanted to know what the weather is going to be. You wanted to know what the forecast is. And I think by, forecasting or looking at the forecast of your business, you're able to identify patterns, right? The other thing, you can also catch a trend when it's popping. It's just like when the winds pick up, or when you're out at sea, the winds pick up, the waves get choppy. You can see a front rolling in, these kind of things, right? Um, if you can see an issue or a problem ahead of time and you're able to pivot so you can either go around it or at least brace yourself for it, it's way better than being broadsided.
And before you poo poo on everything that we're saying, it is for real, for real, for real. They do it with sports. They do like literally every business. And think the bigger the business is, the more focused they are. My sister's always been in restaurant management, and the amount of stuff that they have to look at for their labor and the food costs and like all of these analytics that get thrown into everything, and then that gets reported on to the next up the chain and up the chain.
Hmm.
And again, we're small micro businesses for the most part. Some of are super micro businesses with one person. Some of them we have maybe five or 10 people on staff. We
Yeah.
borrow from what's successful in the bigger businesses, and that is the way to win.
And you think about it too, when you look at the restaurant business, the margins are very slim. They really are. They're very slim. And so they have to be very, very regulated and disciplined to be able to look at all that data and then to apply it.
So, anybody who wants to dig into this any deeper, myself always available, Damon available to
Yep.
talk about it with you guys. And do remember in Owner's Pride, we have a complimentary mentoring that comes to anybody who's in our installer network. And we also do offer business coaching on the outside as well. Okay.
Yep.
So, we got a few people who have said hi here that we should say hi to before we jump into.
Yeah.
Oh, we do got a lot here. We have a fellow, likely from the Middle East, who would like to partner up and boost our. We can earn $1,000 a month if they boost our podcast for us.
I have never heard about that before,
We got
ever.
we got Apollo, who's down in Florida now, getting ready to teach a class this weekend, a leather repair company
The man, the myth,
class.
the legend.
We have Fernando Cortez, who says thanks for putting this together. He'll be listening, but not watching because he's busy. I got Dan Shemley, who I friended with on Facebook today, and I do not know you yet, Mr. Dan Shemley, but I'm about to know you. Let's get you signed up and become an authorized installer for Owner's Pride Ceramic Coatings. I got Mike Carlin. How are you doing, sir?
Hmm.
Todd Brown, the one and only. I
The
keep
man, the myth, the legend.
I keep threatening to dig in deep with him, and he runs away every time. I will get you, Todd Brown. I will get you. 907 up in Alaska. We got
Yes, indeed.
907 Adventures. Rich Zimmerman, professional photographer. I just did a details podcast with him. He is a race
Awesome.
car photographer and rock and roll photographer. Amazing, amazing career journey. And the amount of cool stories and pictures that he shared with 70s and 80s rock and roll stars and 70s all the way through modern times race car drivers. So, so, so cool.
I gotta see that one.
We got 907 detailing. Ask our thoughts on Orbis X. We don't really get compensated for any of the CRM systems, and I really think just like a chemical company, have a demo by each of them and see how you feel about the people. Probably the most important thing, because they all do very similar stuff, is finding a group of guys that you are comfortable working with, that you feel give you the attention you need. And if you have that relationship, it's going to work out good. I see so many people, maybe there's a great service that they're trying to use, but they don't align mentally maybe with the people in the company, and then it's just a train wreck. So do your due diligence. There's Road FS, there's Orbis X, You're Able, there's several of them. Christian Turner from Million Dollar Detailer Academy has an
Hmm.
amazing CRM system with sales stuff all built into it too. So they are out there, and you gotta have one.
Yep.
Mark from Al Unser Country, watching us from New Mexico. He works in a Ford dealership. I owe him a bottle of Eco Wash. I do. I know it. I know I do. Kyle Kamas, boy, we got a lot of people on here. And Jonathan Nichols, we got some more
Nice.
Alaska action.
Nice.
All right, so we're caught up to everything there. Let's dive into our sent in questions from viewers and listeners
Perfect.
just like you. We got the DIY or consumer related questions up on tap first. And number one, how do you remove water spots from a car? Well, first of all, you're going to be in a much better situation if you don't spray hose water or hard water on your car and let it dry. You won't have water spots. Two, if you do have water spots, you get some Owner's Pride Spotless. Spray it on there, let it dwell a little bit, and rinse it off. A lot of times that will take care of it. If they're really bad, baked on water spots that have been sitting out in the sun and kind of growing roots into your paint, you may need to polish it, but I would still use a water spot mineral deposit remover first to soften up the bonds.
Well, exactly. You want to make sure that you're lifting that up, all those minerals, getting them lifted up off the surface of the paint. And, using Spotless is great. Following up with Eco Wash, the great thing with Eco Wash, besides Eco Wash being great anyway, is the fact that it's got all those polymers. So you have the ball bearings on the surface to help keep it lubricated while you're removing the minerals on top. If it's a coated vehicle, one of the things I've also recommended, and I saw that Dustin Warden put out a great video on removing bird poop. Um, Water spots, it's very similar. I love the way that he was able to just take towel, the wet towel, set it on top, and just let it dwell there for a while to get everything soft and lifted up. And then he went ahead and he still showed some of the stain, not necessarily stain, the light etching that was into the coating from the bird poop, and using a heat gun to basically, you know, act like the sun does when you take your car out and you let the UV rays hit it and the heat hits it and how the coating itself can heal. Exactly.
I love it. I love it. Same thing I got on this one back here. I love it. I love it. Okay, what's the best way to wash a car by hand? Well, if I'm going to be the one to throw it in, I'm going to say with Eco Wash, put a capful in about 3 gallons of water and start on the top and wash it to the bottom. I'm not a big fan of car wash soap myself. And then you have the 2 bucket method that some people are so insistent, especially when you get towards the guys who are taking care of their own car. And I have to admit, I really do not use 2 buckets. Maybe if I was going to put one on each side of the car, it would be relevant to me. But I think that the emulsifiers really do a great job of breaking down the dirt and silt and the polymers, like you said, act as a ball bearing to it. And I just don't think that it's necessarily necessary. Although, if you're gonna use two of them with Eco Wash in it, I'm gonna sell twice as much product. So let's put 6 buckets all around the car, one on each side and one on each corner.
Well, and I tell you what, I am a little bit onto the 2 bucket side rather than just the 1 bucket. Now, time wise, I get it. Honestly, and I think it also depends on how filthy is the vehicle, right? Um, with your hot rod in the back, normally 1 bucket is probably all you really need. It never gets very dirty. It never gets very filthy. You're also not in an area where it gets really, really bad. In other areas, if you have a lot of pollen, a lot of dirt in the air, when it rains, it actually it's leaving a little bit of mud on there, right? So it is kind of nice to have that 1 bucket that is going to constantly be your clean water. The other one I would still put, like what you're saying, I put Eco Wash in there, one, to go ahead and have the emulsifiers and the polymers in there. But the other reason is it's going to pull that dirt and debris away from your towel, your sponge, whatever you're using, and help keep that first bucket from being so contaminated. Again, if If it isn't that filthy, yeah, I one bucket all day long. You know, coming from Nebraska and Iowa and knowing what the weather's like out there, yeah, you kind of want to do the 2 bucket thing.
Yeah, I just don't. I never really think about it. All my detailing experience really is. I mean, I took care of my own car before, but it's all
Right.
been here in sunny San Diego. Like they're city dirty cars.
Yeah, my Gladiator sits outside all the time now. Whereas when I lived in Omaha, it was constantly indoors. Some of it is definitely the difference in my garage space for sure out here. There aren't too many big garages. Simply they're just normal 2-car garages out here. But honestly, it doesn't get near as dirty as what it did in Omaha. And just a lot of it has to do with the conditions and the weather. But in Omaha, definitely a 2 bucket. Here, I can, like yourself, I can get by with a 1 bucket most of the time.
All right, what is the best DIY car detailing kit? Um, for me, and this is similar to what I used to sell to my customers or include in my like ceramic coating things. It would be some eco wash, some ceramic detailer, a little bit of tire shine, and maybe some glass cleaner. And I have those products. I can pretty darn much take care of my car and keep it looking really, really great with just those few products.
Depending on the vehicle that you have, honestly, if you have a Jeep, Eco Wash pretty much takes care of damn near everything because you can take care of the interior with the Eco Wash as well as with the outside. Normally for me, I'm a little bit more of a traditionalist when it comes to our products. So I love Ultra Wash. I'm just not a soap and suds kind of guy. After I had been for a number of years until I started working with rinseless washes. And then after we developed Eco Wash, it was very difficult for me to make that big switch back. And so it's Eco Wash. And then as far as a sealant or a protectant or whatever, I love using Ceramic Plus. I just do. Um, I like the way it feels underneath the microfiber towel, how it feels like basically it's gliding right over it. And it to me, it's very quick to help wick away the water, right? And then when you're done, you got any oil left on the surface, it evaporates away. It kind of leaves that oil sheen look. Just let it do its thing. You're going to be fine. And you can put on glass and everything else on the exterior. It's not going to bother a thing. So there, it's cleaned, it's dried, and it's protected.
You can't go wrong. You just can't go wrong with some owner's pride. See, Kyle
It's it,
Kyle
it
gave
comes
us a.
down to
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
oh no, I just say it's great because you can look at the product lineup, right? And you can say, okay, I don't like Eco Wash. I'm not into rinseless. I love suds. Great. Ultra Wash is a fantastic soap that has a lot of surfactants in it, but it has a heavy amount of lubricants in it too. So it's definitely going to keep as far as when your mitt, your towel, when it hits the surface, it's going to keep it lubricated underneath. So if you do have any debris on there, it's going to lessen the likely chances of it scratching. Awesome. So then if you're going to go ahead and say, you know what, I'm doing a decom or I want to just kind of seal this afterwards, fine. You can use Ceramic Plus. Say you just coated it, you don't feel like putting the ceramic detailer on it, you can go with ceramic detailer's little brother Slick, another water-based SiO2. It's neat because you can pick and choose to what works for you and your personality.
You know, here's what's funny. So I in my pitch that I do with guys who are looking at coming on to be an installer, and I do my talking about all the products. I always call Slick the little sister, and you just called it the little brother. Who knows where
I don't know what
the
Slick's
difference in
pronouns are.
psychology is on that?
Maybe we just need to figure out what is Slick's pronouns, and we'll write it down so everybody knows.
Oh my goodness, that's funny. Let's see. Kyle says sometimes I think a 2 bucket method is better for maintenance wash on an already ceramic coated vehicle, but I agree with Damon. It depends geographically on where you're located. He's in Colorado.
Yep.
Um, he said we need Eco Wash air fresheners for general detailing. That may happen one of these days. 2025 is going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it really is.
we got Corey Stewie up here in Alaska who says, "Can you use grime as a booster with Eco Wash? Only if you have some of it left, because we have discontinued grime from our traditional lineup. If you're looking for something that was going to be very similar, I would use some of the clean in there. Um, if you have a car that's really dirty, I know Dustin does that around the car. He puts on clean and Decon X and then Eco Wash and
Yeah, if you do have grime, I mean, maybe they still have a gallon or two or up there at the shop. Yeah, I mean, and I can understand, and you've been to Alaska, you can understand why they need to use a degreaser and a pre-treater
yeah.
like that, or like using OP clean. So it totally makes sense. And yeah, what's awesome about the OP products is each one is its own, your own employee. It has its own job, but you want your employees to work well together so they can actually work as a team at the same time. You don't have to, you can be more efficient and have them work together rather than step one, step two, step three. Okay, now I can do this. They can actually work together that way.
Yeah. And for those areas where, like, and this I caught from you guys when I was in Omaha one winter, you guys were putting a pre soak of Spotless onto the car right from the beginning. When you have all the
Yeah.
stuff up from the roads coming up in the winter, and that's freaking brilliant. As well, you can use that in your floor mats that have a whole bunch of salt in them and then extract it out.
And not just your floor mats. You know how it spills over. Well, you're in San Diego, so you don't know. But when you were there, you could see that the salt itself didn't just stay right there with the floor mat, that it does spill over, because people's feet drag getting out, drag getting in. And so now you got it into the carpet. That will also help loosen it in the carpet and be able to pull that out too. Um, it's a mineral remover, not just a water spot remover. And so it gets in there and it begins to loosen up the sodium chloride that's been pulled in.
Let's see. Does it work on floor mats? Yeah, that was with the Spotless. I don't think I'd put the grime onto a floor mat that's made out of carpet because of the high pH. It's, I think, like 13 and a half or so. Um,
Yeah.
and even if you do, you're going to really want to flush it out with Eco Wash or something that's pH neutral to bring that back down so it doesn't turn brown and get stiff and re-attract dirt. So I probably wouldn't
Yeah.
use anything that high pH personally.
No, and it's definitely more so an exterior product. The cool thing about OP Clean, we have the interior dilution ratio for it and the exterior dilution ratio for it on the label, just to make it easy so you can use that product interior and exterior. Like grime, like what you were saying, as far as with the pH level and the dilution rate, it's still going to be fairly high, and yeah, it's great for the exterior parts, no problem at all. But the carpet, yeah, I agree with you.
Too spicy for the inside. All right, let's hit a few of these from our detailers here. This is a really huge question that could be actually an entire show topic, I think. But how do I start a successful detailing business? Um, there's a lot of ways that you can do that. I think that if I were to go back and do it again, or if I'm working with anybody to help them do that, I think working on a business plan right from the beginning. Did I do that myself from the beginning? Absolutely not. Would I have had a quicker acceleration had I done that? Yes. That's kind of one of the things that I really, really enjoy about what I get to do in the world is, especially when we have guys who are newer detail businesses, and everybody has to start somewhere. But when we can kind of come in and help guide them a little bit, just like the talk that we had today with the analytics. I mean, you know,
Hmm.
teaming up, finding a company that you feel comfortable with, that you like the people, the culture, and the products. Kind of finding somebody to team up with, I think, is going to get you a lot further down the road than jumping all over and being a shiny object syndrome person. and listening to people who have been in the business who have advice to offer you and that are willing to work with you. We just I didn't have that when I started, and that's kind of one of the reasons that I enjoy so darn much helping guys out is help them get over those hurdles quicker than I did.
I wish somebody would have said, you know, quit. Yeah, you need to work in the business, but you need to spend time working on the business. And I think for me, when I was first starting out, when you talk about working on the business, oh, I need to work on my website. I need to work on this. Yeah, that's important too, but you need to be able to work on the business and understand your customers. Understanding your customers is probably I would say, like, number one thing. And when I mean understanding them, understanding their needs, understanding your area and your marketing, and really working on the business when it comes to actually more so than just a P&L statement, um, which is important. Don't get me wrong. I just you need to be able to take it just a little bit further than that. And I wish I would have focused a little bit more of that in the beginning. And you're right. It maybe I would have been in South Carolina quicker. I'm not for sure, but it's all about setting those goals, right? So where are you going to go? With your business. I didn't even think about a 5-year, 10-year plan or anything like. I didn't write that down when I first started. And these are the things that really would have been very influential for me. Um, to hear it. Now, it's not saying it wasn't out there. I just didn't take the time to go look. I really didn't. I didn't take the time to go look for it. And we're also talking about the early 90s. I mean, at that point, very few people even had a computer in the home,
Yeah.
and so you would had to have gone and get the book and everything else. Nowadays, there's no excuse. There really isn't. The only excuse you can make is you.
Yeah, because you can literally just start typing blindly ideas that you have into ChatGPT and then say formulate this into a business plan for me, and it'll organize all the information. Like there is no excuse.
Yeah,
Here's
there's
where
not.
its ego is what gets in the way in so much of life, and I know I had that problem for sure when I detailed. And here's how you can tell if somebody has ego getting in the way, and it's directly related to what we're talking about. They're like, only I can polish the car. I can't have any of my employees polish the car because they can't do it. Only I can put the ceramic coating on. There's nobody else in my town that can detail a car like me. Like, there, all of these statements, yeah, other people can actually do all of these things, and you're only hurting yourself when you let ego get in the way. It just stunts your growth, and it's a roadblock.
the you're saying roadblock, the biggest obstacle for every business, no matter what the industry is going to be you. Getting in your own way um, becomes habitual. Um, it can become a daily routine. And honestly, I think that's where going back to the analytics, when you start looking at the numbers, you are looking at yourself too. The good, the bad, and the ugly. It's all there. And it forces you to really look at yourself and not get in your own way. And you should be able to see, am I getting in my own way? You know, by your analytics, by seeing are your customers returning. If your customers aren't returning back to you, more than likely it's you. It's not them. It's if you're not seeing a lot of your customers coming back, there's a reason for it, and you need to look at it and do that self-examination and say, okay, I need to make some changes. It's not that hard. You just gotta say, I need to make some changes here and get out of your own way.
All right, hey, and you know what? We're coming up on an hour, so I'm gonna spin this a little bit different way. Well, I know that you guys, you and Kim, are going out and doing your activities and in your driving around in your golf cart. So I know that there's gonna be a Halloween party that's coming. What's a
Uh-huh.
Damon and Kim gonna be for Halloween this year?
I'm going real simple. I figured I'm already there, pretty much. I just don't look as good as Robert Downey Jr., but I'm going to do the Tony Stark thing.
You do kind of
And
look like
my
him.
neighbor, yeah, put on a tracksuit, get a little glowing, arc reactor on there. I'm good to go. Just keeping it simple. And what's really neat, this will be my first year. Take my grandson around for trick or treating. He's going as an F1 driver. He's got his little electric Challenger, and so I'll just be there with the remote control and just driving around. It's super simple.
That is
Um,
so
we'll
cool.
probably make we'll probably make it one block, and that'll be about it. Other than that, it'll be. I like the idea of the adult trick or treating too around here. So my neighbor has made some really cool rum drinks, and so I'll be passing out candy to the adults also.
Oh, that's awesome, awesome, awesome. You know, we've lived in this house for 16 years, and I think over the entire 16 years I've lived here, if we've had 20 trick or treaters cumulatively, I think I think they all might go to another neighborhood. Maybe they expect better treats somewhere else or something. I don't know. They're
All
going to
you gotta
your
do
neighborhood.
is just do the big candy bars, and they all come. That's it. They all show up. You don't even have to have big candy bars for everybody. If you want to see a lot of, just start off the big candy bars. After that, you start getting the little ones.
Right.
But no, no, no. They start texting and letting everybody know where the big candy bars are.
I do. It is pretty fun when they come around, though, especially the kids that are really little are like so into it. And I rarely do I use this word,
Yeah.
Damon, but and we're about to go out here, but it's cute.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think for a lot of us, when you look at what they're doing, right, you remember how many Halloweens that you had as a kid, and then there's that one costume that you absolutely love, and you had to put it on 2 weeks before Halloween, and then you hope to God that's still together by the time you actually go out to go trick or treating, and that whatever holes are around, wherever you rip them open or whatever, you don't see them. Or if you're like us and you grew up in Iowa, nobody really knew what the hell you're wearing because you had a full winter jacket on. So
I always think back when we were kids, they had those like plastic masks with the little stretchy thing that went across the back.
you mean the plastic they hadn't fully cured out, and when you put it on, you're practically asphyxiating
Yeah.
yourself. Oh
Oh.
yeah.
All right, all right. Well, another successful episode here, and make sure to be on the lookout. We post these onto the audio version of the Owner's Pride podcast every week. So I'll do that at the beginning of next week for anybody who didn't get a chance to check out the video. You can still listen to us on audio there. If you have questions and comments, please send it to us. If you have something that you'd like to see us do a show about, we're more than happy to do that for you.
Absolutely.
You got anything else,
Perfect.
Damon?
I did not. I feel like I've talked the entire time, so I'm done.
All right. Until next time, stay glossy. I hit the wrong button right there.